Time has come once again to speak as co-creators in Magic Do. I am Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffin-Stone, and we are your guides on Journey into the Heart of the Primordial. Welcome.
That's right. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 10.
Da, da, da.
I don't know why, but Ooga Booga seems to be the title.
Why not? It's a good
That's what
enough
I got.
title.
Mhm.
It's a good enough title. For the listener, we're recording this at the drop of a hat, and in other words, not planned, not our usual day. Nothing about this is, well, it's never scripted, but nothing about this is even our usual pattern. So except perhaps that we jump in and don't really know where we're
Right.
going with it. But
You know what? I'm going to start off with an amusing spellcasting story. Amusing to me, anyways.
let's see.
So, right, I was asked to do a sort of, for lack of a better description, a solar-powered sense of wonderment spell. Okay.
Solar powered sense of wonderment spell. Okay. You got me hooked.
Right.
Tell me.
And I figure I'm a Leo, right? That's my sun sign. There you go. Solar powered right there. I'm the guy, right? Got it. Well, if I could only ever feel meh for most of the spell. When I was prompted to, do the push for that sense of wonder, I could muster it. I could dig down and get it. But when I wasn't pushing that signal, I was just like, I am not feeling this.
Interesting.
I did the spell, put as much energy I could into it. But just when I was actually asked to push that sense of wonder, that was the only time I could really muster it. I was just kind of feeling for the rest. That's how I was feeling that day though. So it was just funny
Oh,
to because I thought about it after. I'm like, how the hell is this supposed to work? Like I'm being asked to give a sense of wonder and I'm not feeling it right now.
maybe you were being asked to create it
Hmm, maybe.
because that's a good practice to do. In fact, I worked with someone yesterday who was doing hard to describe, but kind of
Mhm.
energy shifts from okay, the nervous system has been triggered, and you have these negative feelings that are valid, absolutely valid, but not helpful. So how do
Right,
you move from that? And that's the sort of creation story, if you will,
right,
because you get to create a different perspective on, well, what am I going to do when that nervous system is triggered? How am I going to release it? What's the action? And the key there is to take an action rather than to ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. So in your case, the action could have been the spell
right,
to create a sense of wonder. Because lately you've been saying that you're a little bit you're not feeling it quite that
right.
way.
That's true.
So maybe you get to repeat it and try the
Mm.
do something like it, not exactly that one, but something where how will you create that? Because that's very powerful.
Well, I the spell I did today actually. So this was just for the person who keeps showing up in my chakras there. So I was to open a gate for them so they can get some resources, right? I'm like, that's cool. I got this, right? I open the gate. I go, there you go. You know, they go in. The door gate closes, and I'm inside the gate. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I fed them a lot of energy to help them get through the gate, right? To begin with. But then it turned out I was the resource inside the gate. So I'm
Ah,
like, all right, okay, this is some serious stuff. I'm getting into it. And then I just did the work, but I got into it. So I did. get into it wholeheartedly. I wasn't mad. I was like, okay, well, if I'm the resource behind the gate, then I'm doing it.
I wonder if the sense of wonder
Mm,
spell, because this is what's coming through for me, and by the way, the
right,
color is orange. Um, the the sense of wonder spell that I'm getting is this is for you to create your energy source. It's
right.
for you to create like your solar battery. Oh yeah, that's the image. It's a solar
Right.
battery, and you need to be able to access that as and when because you're doing such a lot of work with your energy,
Hmm.
because you are contributing and working through your energy pathways.
Hmm.
So that is you conjuring up literally your own solar battery.
Mm. Well, that
And
makes
it's
sense. Like today was
powered
funny.
by sense of wonder.
Yeah. Well, and this whole episode might be about spell casting, but my thing today was because I kind of took a day off too. I was like, I wasn't physically tired, but I was like, I need a day off. Like I am tired on a different level,
Yes.
right? So I was like, and I was thinking to myself that not that I didn't recognize it, but I'm like, okay, I have to come up with a plan to manage these things, or at least I have to figure out how to manage these things because right, when you're so used to doing things in the shadows and you're used to everyone not really like not appreciating in a negative sense when I say not appreciating, just that not appreciating because you don't understand it kind of thing. So you can't put yourself in that position. So I'm like, okay, so that when you do it for a long time like that, that starts to reflect on that starts to become a characteristic of your own as well. You start to underappreciate what you're doing.
Right.
So
And
I was like,
exhaustion leads to that.
right. So I was like, I'm exhausted, but like, is this a day off worth of exhaustion? Like, is it? Because I was like, there was nothing I could motivate myself for today. But then once I said I'm going to take the day off, I was like, okay, this is good.
Hmm. Another question to ask yourself with,
Right.
is this a sort of day off type exhaustion? Is it not? Right? Like, is
Hmm.
there a reason not to take a day off? We have a lot of work ahead of us that's
Right.
very big, draining. It's just fucking exhausting, actually. And I think every now and then, if we don't unplug and just take a day off, just put it all down and say, you know what? That is another day's problem. I
Mm.
am not dealing with that right now. If we don't do that, the battery is completely emptied, and then you can't do much from there. That was the point I'd reached yesterday,
Mm.
where before I did that energy work, I could hardly keep myself upright.
Mm.
It was, it was a sort of bone tired exhaustion where I could just lie down on the driveway, like it didn't matter where I was gonna be. Uh,
Right.
and not so much the kind of tired that you get from loads of activity, more the tired that you get from just it's depletion. That is the
Hmm.
word. It is depletion. Exhaustion that comes from putting it out there and maybe allowing some to leak or allowing others to drain you of it,
Right.
which has definitely been happening in my environment lately.
Mm.
And that's not going to continue. I can say that for sure. Um, yeah, but also in my case, it was I needed to find another way to approach and handle what's a very, very draining situation. And we all have that right now, one way or
Right.
another. We all have
Oh, yeah.
something that is draining the life out of us. So this is an invitation to take an inward journey and find where your solar battery is.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny that you say solar battery because one of the things I was contemplating this morning since I was taking a break was a part of me is kind of feeling this call to the fact that no, even though it's winter, to just go sit outside with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or something like that and just enjoy the outside. Doesn't have to be like a walk or a hike or anything like that. Just be outside.
Hmm. Yep, I've been doing that today. Yeah, and I think it's taking a deep breath, so long as you live in a place where you can do that. If you're in the
Yeah.
middle of New York City, maybe don't. But, if you're in a place that's got fresh air, take a nice deep breath
Mm.
and then another, and then maybe another one, and look at your environment. Can you see trees? Do you see snow? Do you see grass? Like, what do you see in your environment? Can you connect to it? Can you appreciate it for however long? It doesn't matter. It could be seconds, it could be minutes, but I think we're not seeing the environment that's around the good parts, the parts
Right.
that are there no matter what stupid things people do over the top. That's a reconnection that I think is a wonderful thing to do. And if you're in a place where you can walk barefoot, which is probably not where Danielle lives, but
Not right now, no.
ah, not really. But if you're in a place where there's grass and you could do that, not a bad idea. I
Mm.
don't live in such a place. I can't do that, but that's largely because I have six dogs, and there's no way I'm walking out there barefoot.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing, and it would not be grounding. It would be a very different experience. So,
Right. I was just thinking, I might add, if you've been studying the Wim Hof method, you can go outside right now bare feet where I am.
oh, that's true. If you like that sort of thing, yeah, I don't, but there are those who are big fans, and yeah. But I think it's definitely we're at a time where we've been pushing, pushing, pushing. We really gotta allow ourselves some space and
Yeah.
allow ourselves to just say, you know what? I'm not doing that today. Whatever that is, just no. I'm gonna read a book all day, or I'm gonna sit outside. I'm gonna go sit in a coffee shop. Like whatever it is you want to do that you don't normally do.
Right.
Something completely out of whack, ideally away from your computer screen. Um, and yes, I know Danielle and I are doing this right now, but this isn't a work thing. This is what we do for fun. Uh,
Right.
so that's a whole other ball game. But if you can just unplug for a while, that's what I keep getting is this vision of a great big plug being pulled out of a wall
Right.
socket. And for
Well,
anybody that's interested, it's a British plug because it has the three prongs that are kind
right.
of square.
Mm. Yeah, I can wholeheartedly agree with that because that's been what I've been getting for the last month. In all honesty, it was like everything I keep looking. That's why I was sitting with the meh as well. It was like every time I look at stuff that I do, it's like, okay, yeah, but that's not recharging your batteries anymore. This is just weighing you down now. It's old weights that need to go away. Because like I just been following the news and stuff like that, and it's like, like,
Right.
like all right,
And
time to break away from that stuff for a bit.
yes, yes. I do not follow the news as much as I can humanly possibly manage it, but there's still so much,
Mm.
so much that you can't not come across that, it's a lot to carry. And here's the thing for
Well,
the
yeah,
for the listener, if you've been doing your best not to listen to social media, not to listen to the media circus that none of the media outlets, by the way, on TV, none of them are actually news. They are all propaganda machines, every single one of them, and I don't care which
yeah,
side they're on. So if you're plugging yourself into those propaganda machines and getting the onslaught of misinformation and heavily biased information, that is utterly draining for you. Unplug from that if you've been doing it. And if you haven't been doing it, here's the tough part to understand. It's in the field. Even if you're not actively watching and listening,
mm.
you're feeling it, you're experiencing it because it's there. You can't not. The stuff that's coming out these days, particularly about Epstein files and so
Oh,
on.
yeah,
That's it's there, and it's so widespread that I don't think any area of mm, people that we know. I don't think there's going to be an arena where there isn't somebody involved, and that is a truth about humanity that I don't think any of us were prepared for. It's just how
yeah,
widespread this is.
yeah. I mean, like, because there's always been at least rumors and allegations about people in power doing strange and frankly really messed up things.
Yep.
But it's
But
like
to
now
see
it's in
how
the
far it goes,
yeah, and just
and
how many people, like
it's
even people you would have suspected would never have been in this position, are there.
yeah, it's how many people. It's also what positions they're in. I mean, university professors.
Hmm.
What? How? That is. The more you think about it, if you think about it, the more disturbing that is on a very fundamental level, because some of these people were in positions of trust and
Yep.
in positions where you're going to listen to them and look up to them.
Oh yeah.
Now you realize that not only are they flawed human beings, but the word flaw is insufficient for this. Corrupted,
Yes.
depraved. These are words. So all of this information in the field is draining.
Yes.
It's it is literally the breaking of the ego, the breaking down of everything we thought we knew. You and I have been talking about this for months.
Hmm.
This is one of the things that's happening now. That's exactly what it is. We knew it wasn't going to be easy and it wasn't going to be fun, and
Yeah.
now we're experiencing it. So everybody needs to like find a way to get your generator, get your solar battery, your
Right.
you know pile of nice smelling flowers to sniff when everything around you stinks.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because that's the whole, because we've talked about, I think, the last couple of episodes about reconnecting. We did, especially last episode. But it's, yeah, it's that time. Like, it's definitely about reconnecting.
Yeah, it is. And the reconnection is, I mean, for myself, I was talking about reconnecting with each
Mhm.
other and,
Right.
on that level. But this is reconnecting with source. This is reconnecting with that will fuel you to
Mm.
keep going.
Yeah. And because it's interesting too, right? Because this is also a time, I'm just, because my head is spinning about this one. It's like last episode we were talking about this is how, and for the last couple episodes about, maybe even more than a couple, about it's not about being angry, it's not about revenge, it's not about stomping down on someone, it's about creating a place for people to heal. And the temptation right now with everything being said in the news and released in the news, it's like you want to, kind of storm the castle and with the pitchforks and and the torches and burn everything down. But it's like that's not going to solve the problem. That's just going to be an excuse to clamp down on the population.
Yeah, I mean, some action does need to be taken,
Hmm.
and I think we can be fairly certain that whatever it is, it will be insufficient. It won't satisfy the people who are just outraged and heartbroken by all of this. But
Right.
that there needs to be some kind of action, absolutely. What there needs to also be is not um, a losing sight of humanity in the
Right.
process.
Well, I had this right. I had said this before, right? It's not about blaming a whole group for something. It's about targeting the actual people responsible. Because if you the minute you target a whole group, you're shielding the people who are actually doing something wrong. You're putting everyone else in that group ahead of them as a shield when you really should be spending your energy on the people who are actually responsible.
Yeah, well, blaming an entire group is somebody that's innocent is going to be blamed for something if
Right.
you're doing that. But there has to be we have to figure out how we are going to dismantle this, right? This
Right.
is this is us breaking down right now what we thought we knew, what we understood people to be, the values that various of these people have spouted
Mm-hmm.
while doing unspeakable things to very small children, is the dissonance is so complete that that's a tough one to bridge, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to need to have a lot of energy input in order to process this and bridge that divide from what we thought we knew to what we now
Right.
know. and what we're going to be knowing soon, because there's a lot more than we know right now, and there's more things that are going to break down, more systems, not just what we're aware of. This is
Right.
early February.
Hmm.
We got a lot to go before we hit the end of the year. We're only just getting into the year of the fire horse.
Right.
And so, we have 12 months of some pretty significant discoveries that we're going to need to be uh, prepared for, built for.
Yeah. It's okay. This is the thing I'm getting in my head. One, I look forward to the change. There's a lot of things going to come out that are actually worth being excited about. I don't mean like sharing of bad secrets, but I mean the growth from it. Yeah, that's where I'm being stopped.
That there is, and we have to go through this part first.
Right.
And that's the thing that, of course, anybody with any kind of empathy or heart at all would much rather not have to do this right now. It
Yes.
would be preferable to not have to learn these things, feel these things, experience these things. Um, but they're a reality of this planet. And like I said, the repercussions are going to keep going. The stone just landed in the middle of the lake,
Hmm.
and now the ripples are going to start.
Yep.
So it's pretty significant. And some other stones are going to get wet in the process. There's a lot of things are going to be unveiled from this. This tearing
Yeah.
down of the veils that we've been talking about. Yep, this is part of
Hmm.
that deal.
Yeah. It's what comes to my mind. I was thinking about this earlier, but there's a lot of people are going to have to look at their libraries and see all the books they have and see that a lot of those authors, especially like law authors and political theory authors and stuff like that, and how many of those people they're like, you were telling me this, you got a whole book on this, and yet here you are doing the other, you know?
There's a lot of there's a lot of incongruence between what people have been teaching and what they've been living.
Yeah.
And that's the difficulty, right? Because we have, typically you believe the facade because, well, we don't have the bandwidth to question every single person that stands up and says, "Hey, I know some things and this is good."
Right.
You're not going to question it if it looks good, sounds good. It's like if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and walks like a duck, it's a duck. Except is it? And in this
Yeah.
case, no, sometimes that is not true. And now we're finding out. But just the fact that this is not only possible, but so widespread,
Yeah.
that's a lot to wrap your human brain around and understand that, the facade we had, that was not it. This is not it.
Yep.
In the US, I've noticed on my algorithms anyway, I
Hmm.
get a fair number of black people who are kind of saying, okay, you got there, did you? Uh-huh.
Mm.
We've been telling you this for years.
Yeah.
This country's always been fascist. It's always been this way and that way. And I see their point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another level of, oh wow, we were being told and we were being shown, and stuff was happening that we knew about, but somehow it didn't have the impact that it should have. So why is that? What happened there? That's another level of, let's pull that veil back and see what's going on. So
Yeah.
so many things happening connected to, peripheral to, um, yeah, it's the big rock that fell in the middle of the lake and whoosh, those
Yeah.
ripples coming out.
Well, you know, it pretty much goes like we knew there was a rot, but we had no idea how bad the rot was.
Hmm.
We assumed on that level that you know, there was still kind of that dichotomy of honest actors and, the really shitty people. But it turns out even these people holding themselves up as the honest actors were also complicit.
They were actually shitty people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
So
and you're always someone's hero and someone's monster, but like, holy crap, can we have a little bit more of the hero side there? So,
yeah, and this one isn't up for debate. Like there's
right.
no well, if you look at it from this
Mm-hmm.
perspective, that person was okay. No. There is no angle where this was okay. And they all know that. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it's been so difficult to get this list out there. And I don't know what the point of killing Epstein was because, it's not really slowed anything down for
Yeah.
getting all the information out there. So unless he knew even more than was in the files and could have gotten to
Yeah.
some even bigger people, but I don't have the bandwidth for that right now.
Well,
Not
that
gonna
was a
think about that right
discussion.
now.
Yeah, that was a discussion I heard today. They were
Oh yeah?
talking about the release of the Epstein files, and they were saying they're releasing a lot of information at once on purpose to
Hmm.
overwhelm people
Oh yeah.
because they couldn't keep it hidden anymore. So they're just going to release it so people just they can't process it.
And there's still a lot that's redacted, which
Yeah.
is bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Like why would you do that? But yeah, there's so much going on right now. And the fact that people would intentionally try and hide things and obfuscate such a massive crime is,
Well,
beggars belief, right? It's something that we have to focus on and sort of say, well, that wasn't what I thought I knew.
right. These were two things today that were sitting on my mind. I had thought about posting something about what do you really know? Like ask
Mhm.
yourself 5 questions, like how did you find out about this? Who told? Where did you find out? Does that source make sense? All that kind of stuff about like just what you actually know. How do you know it? Why do you know it? Why do you think this information is correct in the first place? And all that kind of stuff I was thinking about. And I was also thinking about personal culpability. When a small group of people gain an immense amount of power, it requires a lot of cooperation from the people who gave up their power.
Yeah, I don't know that we're there yet, though. Like, I think we got to do a lot more. Personally, my perspective
Yes.
is we got to do a lot more processing before we get to the
Right.
culpability of those that gave away their power or had it taken. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're not there yet. That's
No.
the other side of this mountain to process. That's kind of more significant in that it's in our faces right now. This is Mount
Yeah.
Vesuvius blowing up, and
Right.
you don't want to look at, well, who threw rocks into it right now.
Right.
It's more where's the lava going, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, how did we miss it? How
Right.
did we not know? And again, there's a societal thing where
Mm-hmm.
people don't listen to the women who spoke of when they were girls. People
Mm-hmm.
don't listen to it would be fair to say victim at this point.
Yes.
People don't listen to them. They are questioned and doubted and dismissed. It is time, with the rise of the divine feminine,
Mm.
that bullshit stops. Like,
Right.
no, believe the women. How is it hundreds of women have come forward
Mm.
and spoken about their experiences and been dismissed as that's too bizarre, it can't be true. But one man's list
Yeah.
will have more power than these women's lived experience. Now, if that's not something we need to alter, break down, and change, I don't know what is.
Mm. Well, that's the why I was thinking about that in the first place. Like, it is amongst my responsibilities, if you will, to get ahead of the stuff in the sense of spiritual change. You know, One could argue it's part of my duties, but so the time is to kind of start planting the seed of that because what happens when this is all over and everyone still goes back to behave their normal behavior or business as usual? Well, then these people just come back in. We've just cleared the board for a second and then they come back in. So we kind of need to start planting the seed of what did we do to get here? What did we give up?
Yes. And just what kind of society is it that allows this to be a thing that grows, allows this to happen. Because pedophilia
Mm,
is not um it's not the physical aspect of what the person does, it's the mental.
right,
It's a mental illness, if you will, that this person is thinking of all kinds of things to do to somebody who's very far underage.
right,
How do we get to that? Like how is that a process? Like there's a thing called chemical castration where
right.
put this person on these meds and suddenly their equipment isn't working anymore.
Mm.
Well, guess what? That doesn't work
No, because
because
it's not the issue.
there are other ways to do things.
Right.
And the problem is in the brain,
Hmm.
not in the pants. The pants is just the outcome, but the problem is in the brain. So how have we got so many people with that problem in the brain going undetected or kind of covered for? How is that
Yeah.
so how have we missed that?
Yeah. Well, some of the talk I've heard about it is that people were saying was it's not even that. Um it's the problem when you're wealthy and you feel above the law is what can I get away with? What terrible thing can I get away with without suffering repercussions? And
Yeah, but there's
yeah,
still an act that has to
yeah,
go with that thought that you have
right.
to be you have to kind of want to do, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Well,
still a question there, why that?
right.
And why was there at no point something kicking in for any one
That's
of
saying
these
yeah,
people
yeah,
that said, you know what? This is not something that I should be doing. This is not reasonable, fair. Like pick a thing. You look at a small child,
right.
that's the way you think? Like
Yeah.
that is a problem. How did we get to that place where so many people can have that problem and it goes by by the side street. You don't really see it. How did we get there?
Yeah. Okay. Just tuning in some stuff here. Okay. So the first part to deal with, because this is more of a we'll call it technical aspect. So our brain is built on many systems, right? And they overlap. And depending on how they overlap is the outward effect. So like I've said before, right? The some of the same things you would do in a courting ritual, you also do dealing with children or people you love, but there's a line and you never cross it, right? So you can show the open displays of affection and the touches, and it never goes further than that.
That wasn't about affection.
No, but what I'm getting at is, and so then just to give it like a basic mechanics, some systems overlap too much and they don't have that line. But I'm still looking at it, it's still a problem. It's still a this is not a justification, right? It's just a potential mechanistic issue. But the other thing is that no, I lost it. No, the other shit. I'm not quite finished the other one, I guess. So
The thread went.
there's a issue of all these systems overlap and the wrong connections are made.
But isn't it interesting who it is that has those wrong connections?
Right.
There's an age group, there's a demographic
Yeah.
that is most popularly in that position. And I think it's got a lot to do with the subjugation of the divine feminine over
Mm-hmm.
generations, many, many generations. And that has allowed this kind of warped development, this malignant development to occur. It's a bit like somebody who is susceptible to tumors
Right.
eating lots and lots of sugar all the time, thereby feeding the tumors and ending up with cancer. Somehow, what I'm saying is society has, by oppressing the divine feminine
Mm-hmm.
and putting us out of energetic balance, severely out of energetic balance,
Right.
that has allowed this malignancy to grow.
Yes. Yes. That's what I'm saying. There was already a predisposition. That's what I was trying to get at. There's a predisposition, but then the way society has been altered or guided, if you will, by the actions of people, it exacerbates this predisposition.
And it
Because,
encourages it to grow that way more. Like think of a bent
yes,
tree, right? If a tree is
mm,
bent over and continues to grow, it's not going to grow straight. It's going to grow in that sort of bent over shape.
yes,
So by leaving the suppression of the divine feminine unchecked, allowing that to continue
right.
for whatever reasons, and that's several podcasts worth,
Mhm.
but you
Yes,
know, by allowing that, that has allowed the malignancy to grow. And
yes.
I think um that's a big part of why we have to really break it all down now and allow the divine feminine to come up because we're not going to see it in
Yeah.
our lifetime where this problem is balanced out again because it's too many centuries, but too many centuries of oppression. But we're going to see some massive shifts, I
Mhm.
believe, um, that we'll know where it's going. We'll have a very good idea of where it's going.
Right. That's the, yeah, because, right, if you look at the, right, we just finished one Kali Yuga and we're starting another one. But this Kali Yuga is about the climb and not about the descent. But to start climbing again, you still kind of have to, you're still at the bottom.
Hmm.
So we're still at the really shitty part.
Well, we're uncovering just how shitty it is,
Right.
right? Because, those of us in it have had a pretty good idea. And
Hmm.
even then, there are layers that we didn't know were there. So, or we didn't know the extent of. And so I think this is where it's kind of like a proving ground in a way.
Hmm.
Some people are still finding ways to defend and deflect and hide and pretend that this isn't really true. And these are people who are not involved directly, but they have sort of said, no, I support these people. They can't possibly have done that. So they're
Hmm.
doing the willful blind eye, even as they know that that's not, you can't do that, right? So we have that going on. How many people are going to end up over there in that camp? Because that's a pit of hot tar right there. Like that is a problem for the people who make those decisions. So this is again a question of be clear on what's important to you.
Mm.
What matters to you? Because do you think the person at the top who's doing all these crimes and stuff, do you think they actually give a rat's ass whether you support them or not? No, of course they don't. They don't care. That's so what are you doing it for? If you're in support of this person, why? And that's an honesty question for the individual to ask themselves. We don't need to hear the answers because it won't matter to us. It matters to you, the individual. Why are you doing that? What do you expect the outcome to be? And when you're returning to your connection with the spirit world, with Source, you're going to be taking some information with you. Uh,
Right.
are you actually taking the stuff with you that you would like to face again? Really? You want to be looking at this and sorting out what it all means?
Yeah.
Be my choice.
So that's, yeah. I got a bit of a buffer in front of me here for this one. I think just let the moment sizzle, or,
Sizzle.
well, I was gonna say sizzle, but let it sink in for a little bit. Or take a moment to really let that sit in. This message of, I want to say, where were you when? Kind
Uh-huh.
of, because people can always name their moments of whenever a big historic event happens or something really significant. Well, where were you in your head when these events were unfolding, when these events were being revealed? like if you look back at the Harvey Weinstein, right? The director or the producer or
Uh-huh.
whatever,
Yep.
like in 2016 when all this started to unravel, everyone was like, "Oh my God, did you know there were casting couches things?" And it's like, yes, since pretty much the beginning of Hollywood, we've known about casting couches. It's movies talk about casting couches. People talk about casting couches in their books, but yet in 2016, everyone act like as if no one knew about this. You know?
Comedians have been telling jokes
Yeah.
about them for years.
Roseanne Barr did a whole thing about casting couches.
Hmm. No,
Like,
but that's like this whole pedophilia ring.
right,
It's more than a ring. It's a fucking
right,
slinky. But the this whole thing, people knew about that.
mm-hmm,
The information was out there. It's just nobody wanted to deal with it. And people were
right,
more comfortable ignoring it or turning a blind eye or just
right,
putting it into the realms of, oh, haha, that can't be real,
right,
right? We've been very good at othering anybody
mm,
that brings the uncomfortable forward.
yeah,
And that, my dear friends, is not going to continue. If you want to other people who bring discomfort forward, you're going to find yourself on an increasingly small iceberg that's going to end up
mm,
like you got one foot on an ice cube and another foot paddling away like crazy
yeah,
because this is not going to stand. You can't do this anymore.
yeah.
The
And that's
message
gonna
I'm
take,
getting.
yeah, it's gonna take a bit of time, multiple generations, because I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I'm just
ours is
focused on
the
what I need to do right now, but
no, I think ours is the time where we
yeah,
shift the direction.
yeah,
And then every generation is going to have a lot to say with the continuation of that shift
mm,
or a return to, the hidden times, if you will.
mm.
Because this is more of the dark ages than the dark ages were. You
Yeah,
know,
this I was gonna
the
say,
age of information it's
yeah,
not the age of information, it's the age of disinformation.
right. This is yes, this is the we don't have dark times because there's no sunlight. We have dark times because we built so many things to act as barriers to that light coming in.
Yep,
Because,
definitely.
like the joke goes, right? We used to think that stupidity was born from ignorance, but the information age has taught us otherwise.
Right? Exactly. That is a true story. Hmm.
Yeah. So now we're putting things in place to block out the light rather than being in a position of being in the dark in the first place.
And those things are going to come crumbling down. And like I said, that iceberg is going to become an ice
Mm,
cube. And, it's shrinking fast. So now is a great time if you're ambiguous about what's going on at all, or if you find yourself on the side that is defending and deflecting.
mm,
I ask you for your own development's sake to consider why you're choosing that and to reconsider your options because it's not to prove me right, it's not to
right.
prove me wrong, it's not to prove me anything. It is literally that this is not as ambiguous as you might like it to be. It's very clear cut.
Yeah. It's funny because I think about all of my recent magic is about uplifting and making people have a sense of wonder in the world, and yet all this stuff is coming out that's really bringing down the darkness and the despair and the you
Yes,
know
but we need both.
yeah,
We need both. I mean, right at the beginning of this episode, we were talking about your solar battery.
right,
We have to acknowledge what is happening right now, and we are making a decision. Where are you in this? No decision is a decision.
right,
100% it is a decision. Um, so yes, terrible things are happening. It's like saying, well, you can't be happy because there's so much bad things happening in the world. I
right,
would argue you must be happy because there's
mm,
so many dark things happening in the world. If you don't allow yourself to find the wonder, to find the happy in something, to be happy about some aspect of your life, if you don't allow yourself that, then you are actually leaping into the dark and you
Right.
have no equipment. You just go in there because it's there. And that does not solve anything. It doesn't resolve anything. It doesn't help anything. So it's actually really important to find the happiness right now, to find that light, not toxic positivity of,
Right.
oh, hey, everything's fine, it'll all be great tomorrow. That bullshit is also, well, it's called toxic positivity for a reason.
Right.
It's unhelpful. Not only that, it minimizes things and puts the
Well, that's
person
it,
in a
right?
place of, yeah, it puts the person in a place of what you're saying doesn't count, and I'm going to override it and ignore you. And that's one of the worst things you can do to anybody.
Yeah. It's mm. All right. Still not my wording yet, but yeah, still being blocked.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
just to round that up, toxic positivity is a falsehood,
Mm.
and it's put forward by people who cannot handle real emotion and they don't want you to bring it to them. And you people who do this are on notice that that is not acceptable and it will not fly. You cannot do that anymore. But the darkness is there and we have to bring our flashlights, like we got to bring
Right.
our light to it, even as it is so dark.
Right. So now what I was going to say now that I'm not being blocked is that if you don't find happiness, you're giving your power away.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Yep. No, that's absolutely true. You're just giving up and leaping into the black hole, and
Hmm.
that doesn't benefit anybody. Nobody, typically somebody who wants to do that is very much externally focused. They're worried about what other people think, how it looks. It's very performative.
Right.
Honestly, it's very performative to do the whole, well, I can't be happy at a time like this. Bullshit. People were happy in the Second World War. People were happy in the First World War.
Right.
We will be happy in the Third World War because that's what we have to do as people.
Hmm.
And if you don't bring some kind of balance, then the black just grows, the dark just grows.
Right.
And so, that is exactly wrong, in my opinion, to say, no, you can't be happy. You must be happy.
That reminds me of another spell I cast last week. I didn't think about it after, but so I had Lilith was involved, Apep was involved, uh, Babylon was too, and I think Baba Yaga. But the idea was talking about darkness, right? The spell was about darkness
Right.
and going into the darkness to find uh, the good things, because it's not just the bad things in the darkness. But I was having kind of sitting here with the issue, right, of thinking like we've been using darkness as a metaphor for bad things for so long that even when I was doing the spell, it was like, okay, my brain can't shake the idea of like every time we say darkness, we keep referring back to bad things when the darkness is just a place of infinite potential. And whatever you choose to shine a light on is what comes up, is what manifests.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. But in the context of this
Right.
podcast,
Yeah.
I've been using darkness
Mm.
for this episode
Yes.
specifically as being a place where light is absent. That's not
Right.
actually true. It's where, all the colors are there and they're all absorbed and so on. But
Yeah.
in the common use of darkness, that's what I'm
Yes.
using right now. And it's a choice to just sort of abandon all hope and jump in there, but
Right.
it's a pretty poor choice. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah. And yeah, no, yeah, kind of add to it, right? Because how you how you look at the darkness, although you can't look at the darkness, I guess. Anyway, but the idea being, right, it's what you choose to shine a light on. Darkness is bad for you because you choose to look for that darkness. I kind of don't want to throw off the listeners of when we talk about darkness. Yes, you can focus on the bad in the dark. That's an equal quality of the darkness as is it's hiding good things as well, or good things are waiting to be revealed, but also bad things. So I just kind of want the listener to have a good balanced sense in their head about the darkness.
So the good things, though, that are in the shadow realm, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
in the darkness, those good things aren't just sitting there shining like little emeralds, you know.
Right.
They are lessons, they are learning, they are knowledge that needs to be transmuted. It's not, it's like taking a piece of coal and crushing it into a diamond. That coal is a diamond. It's just
Right.
not had the transformation yet.
Right.
So the things that are in that darkness, yes, there are absolute gems there, and you have to work for them, which is why shadow
Yes.
work is a big feature, very important. One of my favorite examples to give somebody with human design is, you know, when you're going against your design, you're out of alignment. It's it's just it doesn't work. You got yourself out of the stream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're in alignment, it's kind of like you're flowing down the stream. And that's great, but every now and then you have to have a bumpy part in order to
Right.
learn. So for people who have a 3 or a 6 in their profile, it's a very experimental profile. It's
Yeah.
literally an FAFO profile. And that person, while the whole time they're floating down the stream, you know, feet up in the canoe and doing nothing about paddling, that's cool and nothing is being learned, nothing is
Mm-hmm.
happening. It's just a break. When you hit the rapids, and you have to either get out and portage or paddle like crazy to get through the rapids in an upright manner, that
Yeah.
is where you learn things. That is where you develop your muscle. That is where you grow. The dark or the shadow is like the rapids. The stuff is there and you need to go and engage with it.
Right.
So that's a sort of distinction on the good stuff is there, yep, but you have to work for it.
Yeah.
That's the best kind of good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was gonna say yeah, because the work you do prepares you to receive the good stuff.
And to be able to accept it,
Mm.
right? Like in okay, I need to change something in order to access this. You might think coal is great because you can burn it for fuel and you know that keeps you
Mm.
warm. Okay, but do you want the diamond?
Right.
If you want to go a step further, then the use that you had won't be there, but something else is. Are you prepared for the transmutation? Do you want that? It's limiting to just stay with coal, right?
Right.
I don't know if this is the best example, but it's the one that came up for me, so that's what I'm giving you. But there's things there you have to give something up in order to get something.
Yes.
Typically, that is, you've got to give up the ego, your current understanding of who you are, and that includes what you believe and where those things came from. You have to be prepared to have that broken down so that you can access the good stuff on the other side.
Right.
It's called growth. You know, it's called development. It's
Yep.
we're not made to be here and just be comfortable like a 3-year-old. You know, we have to grow and develop. That's the whole point. We're in school right now. This planet is school.
Yeah.
It's not all gym class.
True. True. Although not everyone likes gym class.
Okay, it's not all
Not me
art
personally. I
class.
love gym class, but
It's not all art class. You know,
yeah.
pick the one that you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I like that one, it's easy. That's yes, and that's the part of the stream where you're just floating down, maybe with your fishing rod in the water, but it's you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
You're not learning anything new.
Yeah.
So the dark, you know, superficially we use it to express an absence of light, but if we're being serious about it, it's more. Danielle just froze, so I imagine I did. In but he had the most interesting facial expression then.
Well, yeah, it's the game you play. The joy of having video stuff about you is that you're going to run the risk of playing the game. What's the worst face I can find when I pause?
Oh, gets me every time. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I showed Michaela a lovely picture of her when she froze that I took.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that will never see the light of day. That was a little more raw than I would like, but
Yeah,
the high glee with which Daniel showed it to me though.
yeah. Well, it was good because we were discussing something and you were starting to get serious and then it froze there. And so if you ever want to see what Michaela looks like full on angry, it's probably a good
You will
example.
not show them that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Uh, see, happiness even in the face of darkness. But
Well,
yeah,
just what does bring you happiness? Because chances are that's your solar battery. That's the
yeah,
thing that's going to recharge you. That's what happiness does. It's an inside job and you can choose it.
hmm
And you have to be willing to choose it in the face of all kinds of horrible things happening. Um, it's a strong book to read, for want of a better word, but Night by Elie Wiesel is Elie Wiesel was a psychiatrist who was quite excellent at his work, and he was taken by the Nazis and put in a concentration camp. And he is the person who's responsible for bringing us the idea that between an action and a reaction, there is a gap. And in that
hmm
gap, you can respond, which
right.
means you choose
Oh, okay.
how you
That's who that was.
how you sort of interact with that event. And this understanding got him through his time in the concentration
Mm,
camp. And he helped other people with it too. And he could even find happiness there.
yeah,
Now, if you can find happiness in a concentration camp where people are dying all around you and abuse is continual, if you can find it there, we have no excuse to not find it
right.
here.
A few good books came out of that whole thing because I had told that story about the guy who built ended up building a clock from scratch. From
Right.
he was a Polish soldier.
So these are, remarkable people
Mm,
making remarkable discoveries during extremely harsh
right.
times. Now, is that something that we'd all want to jump in and say, "Oh yeah, give it to me"?
No.
No, but
But
we
should
are
you be in that position?
well, we are in a situation
Yeah.
right now that I don't think any of us would choose,
Right.
or at least those of us who are connected would not choose this. Um, obviously there are some who do choose it, and the question there is what happened? Like what was that? Where does that come
Yep.
from? Why? Um, and the whole thread just got taken away from me, so I guess
Mm,
that's as much as I'm going to say on that one.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's funny, right? Because there is like so much to give you a sense of how deep the shadow work is, and this has been mentioned on the podcast before. One of the things fairly recently, but our very vocabulary insulates a lot of the things that are going on right now. Think
hmm
about it. We use the word noble when we mean someone is of good character, but all noble means is that you were someone born, you know, to a certain like a royal family. You're part of that lineage, and to be vulgar is to be not that. To be uneducated and poor, and it's very frowned upon. And we who are considered vulgar would also be, well, not me. I have royal lineage, but still, I don't.
but words,
Yeah.
the meaning of words changes over time.
Right. And then it came to just be in common parlance of, oh, you're a good person who does good things and has a good sense of justice and
Mm.
whatever. And it's like the word hero. The word hero comes from the Greek and it literally means basically essentially the same thing. You either had to be a member of a royal family or you had to be like a demigod to be a hero. You couldn't just be like a farmer who, like, if a farmer had killed the Hydra instead of Hercules as a demigod, that farmer wouldn't be a hero.
Right.
So,
But language
yeah,
language develops with our understanding of things around us, I think.
right.
We're still kind of limited because we're not as smart as we think we are as human beings, obviously.
Mm,
Or it wouldn't be where we are now. But it's language is interesting, and it gets very interesting when people want to go back to the original meaning
hmm
or an early meaning and bring that forward. It doesn't work. Like the word nice
right.
used to mean small.
Hmm.
Nobody uses the word nice to mean small.
No,
No, but that is an original.
you're right.
Oh, I don't know about original, but it's an early meaning. Is small is, nice is small. There are, I
Right.
think, 32 different meanings for the word nice. And how many do we know? Probably one, maybe two.
Yeah, that
But,
is, and
the meaning has shifted over time.
yeah, I mean, and language evolves, right? And that's the whole thing, right? You got to accept it because it evolves.
Hmm.
You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it at some point because everyone is using it that way. But I
Yes.
think of just like a very kind of almost a glaring, not a glaring, but a very defined switch for a word that happened in my lifetime, our lifetime. I think the word gay.
Oh, yeah.
Songs from the 70s and earlier, the word gay had nothing to do with homosexuals. It was just you're happy.
Uh-huh.
People are described as having a gay time. People are described as being gay. It had nothing to do with their sexuality. But then you
Uh-huh.
hit the 80s, and then that word means something completely different.
Yep, because they stopped using another word that was a slur for
Right,
people who are homosexual.
right.
That became less of a thing. And in the UK, it was a cigarette.
Yes,
The word fag is a cigarette.
yeah.
So it's yeah, it's interesting the way language changes. So what we understand by it um also shifts, and we don't necessarily, although I think the current generations, Alpha and Gen Z,
Yeah,
would argue they do have their own language, and it is very, very different. They
mm,
have taken words and made a whole other thing out of it. So that's going to be interesting to see where do we end up with that one.
yeah.
Very interesting. And we've
Me.
shifted how we work with language too. Schools stopped teaching cursive writing.
Mm,
Single stupidest move I think I've heard yet. Some schools are going back to it now because they've actually realized it was very stupid to do that. Extremely limiting for the kids.
right.
But and they also stopped teaching to tell the time using an analog clock. Again, that limits you a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we still make timepieces with the whole all the numbers. Like
Of course,
it hasn't
we
gone away.
even
That's
still
still
have
current.
we have Roman numerals still,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Kids wouldn't even know what a Roman numeral was if you told it to them. But that's not their fault, okay? This is where I want to go differently on this.
Mm.
Because usually you hear, oh, kids today, they don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I got
Well,
into the habit of once I had to deal with kids a lot. I got into the habit of when people would say that, I'm going like, yeah, well, who taught them to be like that? They didn't figure that
exactly.
out by themselves. The millennials didn't go out and buy their own participation trophies.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is something again that we have gotten used to a certain comfort zone
Right.
of blame the younger generation, whichever generation
Mm.
you're picking on,
Yeah.
for how they are. And nobody seems to pick up on the fact that, well, you did that. That's
Yeah.
you. What you're
That's a
talking about
byproduct of
is
your
you,
work.
not them,
Yeah.
right? They are not the problem. They are the result of your problem.
Yeah. That
And
was
that,
actually something, I was really thinking about today. I was out and about doing my stuff, doing the spell and everything like that. And one of the things that I came across, like, because I keep hearing, oh, today, today's youth, the state of the world today, and I think like about how many generations of that
all of
have
them,
gone now in my lifetime, and everyone keeps repeating the same thing over and over again. And
all of
part of,
them.
yeah, and part of what was in my head was like, you know, if you ask a younger generation about the older generation, they're going to tell you your generation wasn't shit. Your time was pretty terrible.
Uh-huh. Well, so actually, I think we've hit on an interesting
Yeah,
thread here because, what's generations got to do with our current situation? Well, everything,
yeah,
right? But what I'm seeing as a common thread is the older generation blames the younger generation while creating what
hmm
the younger generation is.
Yeah.
right? And the issues that they face. And then, as if that wasn't enough, we turn around and expect them to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So we break it, give them a crock of shit, and then tell them to
Hmm.
clean it up. And
Yeah.
this has been going on for many, many generations. And I think that approach is a big part of how we've ended up where we are today
Hmm.
with the stuff going on. Like we've kind of willingly, blindly gone into that. It's, every time you despise something about a younger generation
Hmm.
person, you got to consider, well, who did that,
Yeah.
right? You should be apologizing, not blaming them. That's a whole different thing. We did not fix the problem that our ancestors thought we would fix, clearly.
Yeah.
So, how would we be down on another generation for not doing it also?
Right. I had a conversation with Patrick about this one time. He had asked me, "What do you think is the worst thing your generation ever did?" And I said, "You know
Oh,
what? I don't
bloody
really
hell.
know."
How long has he got?
Yeah. I says, "Well, yeah." I said, "That's a big question. Let me think about it." And then he says, "Well, what do you think is the worst thing about my generation?" And I was kind of like, "Well, you guys are pretty sensitive, like more sensitive than necessary." And you know what? I says, to answer your first question, we did that to you.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the participation trophies for the
Right.
millennials. You know why that happened? Because
Mm,
Gen X never got a damn thing, no matter what happened. You can try your hardest, and
mm,
nobody's going to give you a prize for it or tell you well done. So when Gen X had kids, they wanted the opposite of that for the kids.
yeah.
Like it was so awful that nobody ever cared. Let me show you all the care.
Right.
And
And
that
that's
was
the
what
thing, right?
happened. And
Yeah.
now I'm being climbed on by a
Yeah.
puppy.
I see that. Maybe I'll clip it and put it on the YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel for this now, but I just play the podcast on it
Aha.
without video.
Well, if you do put this
Yeah.
on there, this little beastie here is
Yeah.
Lila, and she is
Yeah.
3.5 months old. She's a big 3.5 month old.
Yeah, she's pretty big.
She is. And she's very climby,
Yeah.
so and very waggy tailed.
Yeah, see that? Getting the whole happy tail assault.
Uh-huh.
But it's,
Oh,
speaking of the generation stuff, it's interesting because you see something common every generation, right? Every generation thinks the stuff that they grew up with is the best stuff ever, and
right.
everyone else's generation stuff is no good. The generation before had crappy things, and then the new generation, well, their stuff is stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And, and
go ahead.
and Gen X has a big role to
Mm,
play. The smallest generation has a big role to
yeah,
play in a lot of things that have gone on, particularly for millennials, but not
mm,
only. But it's a generation that came from a very broken place. But then when you look at who parented
mm.
them, they were parented by very broken people
Yes.
from Second World War.
Hmm.
And when you look at who they were parented by, very broken people from the First World
First
War.
World War. Yeah.
So, it's, and then you go back to Industrial Revolution and stuff. So every generation has had its traumas that instead of breaking the cycle, it passed it on and added to it.
Right.
And so we now have, I would like it noted that most of the people in the Epstein files
Mm.
seem to be of the boomer generation. Let's just
Mm.
put that out there. Um, Not Gen X, right? But boomer.
Well, you
So
know what? I'm going to make this argument about Gen X politicians. They suck.
I'm
Right.
gonna have to pause.
All right. Dog thing, so we had to pause. But so to kind of bring this episode to an end, what I want to say is that one, the whole generation thing we were talking about, right, kind of leads to the idea of we get kind of into ourselves and we don't consider others as well as we could. But we get into ourselves because we don't realize, like, when we're young and we're growing, we're building our brains, right? We're setting what we need, what we think is the right thing. All those things we're building up. And anything we learn as an adult is a new thing that had more relevance to us than what we had as a kid. But we always have that core of we appreciate things from our childhood. But the thing is, every generation does that. Your generation is always going to be better than everyone else's generation's music because you grew up with it. You assign those things like when you fell in love, the music that was playing, oh, that music represents love, right? Now, when you hear love music now, you think, well, this is just garbage. Like, why do I need to listen to this, right? But it's not. But it's how this generation is expressing its ideas of love. So the idea to wrap up with is like you grew up with your thing, and your brain compartmentalized that and said, this is what I need for the rest of my life. These are the lessons that I'll carry with me. And if you're the lucky kind of person that can always acquire new lessons, good on you. But try to be that person because you're going to learn. There's always new things to come out that are really good, that might even have been better and might represent what you wanted better than when you were a child. Like, I love a lot of new music because there were things that people didn't sing about when I was young, and there were concepts that didn't get brought up. But now there are, and people do feel free to bring them up. And I'm like, yes, this actually kind of encapsulates what I thought growing up better than the stuff I grew up with, because the stuff I grew up with had limited was limited by society at the time. But now society is more open about certain things. It's awesome, and that gives me new things to now bring into my own brain and how I think about things. So I guess that's my parting
All
message.
all kinds of chaos are about to unleash in this end. So
Yeah.
puppy natured. So I my kind of downloads hit a break on that
Mm-hmm.
one. But until next time.
That's right. Until next time.